Okay, welcome back to Live from MJSA Expo. We are coming to you from the Javits in the River Pavilion. If you're anywhere in the region and you make jewelry or do anything adjacent to making jewelry, you should be at this show. MJSA members, and therefore exhibitors, are among the most trusted partners in the jewelry industry for the tools and supplies and materials that you need to make your jewelry. So if you're nearby and not here, we want to see you. Welcome to our live audience as well. This next session we're going to talk about design, but we're going to talk about it a little differently. We're going to talk about changing influences in design and how, as society changes, it's opened up opportunities for designers and for consumers to access design that have not been as available to them in the past. And we see some emerging significant change, not just incremental change in what it means to design fine jewelry. And so to have this conversation, I've assembled 3 people that I think are just eminently qualified to discuss jewelry design from this angle, because they are fashion experts and jewelry experts and in design themselves. And but it's not your typical designer panel because of our perspectives. So I have with me Wendy Brandes and Amy Elliott and Angely Martinez. And I'm just going to kick it off by asking you guys, what are some exciting things you're seeing in jewelry design, and why are they exciting to you?
Hi, I'm Angely. I am a jewelry designer based here in New York City. My work is inspired by nature and fantasy, so I just love fashion and combining those 2 things together. I will say right now, like, nature is a big part of it. Like, we have Loewe House of Flowers, so like very realistic flowers. That's like really in right now, and I feel like that world influences what we do because it's so like out there. So then we get to do the other stuff, which is the accessories and the jewelry, and decorate what they do. So I think that's like a good way. Like, jewelry shouldn't be like to the sidelines; it should be part of it. So I think that's like, it's almost like a jewel almost, like wearing jewelry, but it's made out of other things. So I think that's a good thing, the changing influences. And we see a lot of makers from different backgrounds, like I have a different background, coming into the field and just bringing their own voice. So I think that's really good. Yeah.
So I will
Turn on your mic. She will turn on her mic.
Sorry. Oh, I have to press it like this? This one.
Sorry about that, guys. So I'm Amy. I want to first clarify that I am not a jewelry designer. So I do not have that skill set.
But fashion expert, yes.
I am perhaps an expert in jewelry. I cover the jewelry industry for JCK and a number of other publications. So I have line of sight into what many designers are doing, but I do not have the skills that either of these ladies have in a million years. So, a sort of macro trend that I have noticed and I'm excited about is a trend of maximalism, of very big looks, big earrings. And we saw this, I think most recently, Taylor Swift was wearing pretty big earrings at the Grammys, and Zendaya had a beautiful giant Bulgari necklace. So that is a trend that I've actually, and my colleagues and I have been tracking for a while, and I think with that comes the advent of unconventional materials, and I'm excited to see what designers do with it. I'm seeing a lot of experimentation, and I think silver lends itself to that look. I think, the factories in Italy, will be offering, electroplated versions that allow for that kind of big, bold look. So, and then, there are studio jewelers that are really experimenting with all manner of materials, from clay, from polymer clay to, lucite and resin, and so that is something that a large trend that touches, I think, many different aspects of many different sectors of the jewelry industry.
Amy's actually showing off one of the maximalist trends you're talking about, because necklace layering is a big part of that. I think we all have it going on too, but you're like nailing it. I started out my career as a journalist and went into jewelry design in 2005. So I've seen a lot of things change over that time. One of the things I did early on, combining my jewelry and journalism background, was start a blog to speak to customers in 2007. And a luxury expert at the time told me that this would destroy my brand, because you don't want to be, luxury is not about being accessible. So, and we see how that has changed over the years. So what I really think has been a big influence is the advent of social media in all its different forms, especially Instagram, obviously, and TikTok is like booming now. And that interaction, that direct interaction with the customer, it's not easy. It's not like a surefire win. You're not going to get on Instagram and be Instagram famous and sell everything. But it is this unusual opportunity that we didn't used to have to interact directly with the customer and be influenced by and influence the customer in a way where, you know, the brick and mortar store, you know, unless you did trunk shows, you just didn't have it. So I think that's a huge influence. It's a huge influence in the maximalism. You know, you can show people how the necklaces look. You can show a wide variety of people wearing the jewelry. It's not just, you know, the model in a magazine ad.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I'm really seeing is changing the nature of what it means to sell fine jewelry, because the barriers to entry to be a jewelry business are evaporating. You know, it used to be that you had to have a lot of capital to open up a store. You had to stock that store full of fine jewelry. That meant you had to have access to diamond dealers and metal sellers. And there were entire segments of, first of all, a lot of people had no idea how you'd even begin to penetrate those barriers. And that access wasn't available to a lot of people. And so when the barriers to entry disappear and new voices show up and start designing, then you see style change. It's not just dictated by the people who held the keys to the doors that were locked.
Definitely. I mean, I think there have been sort of unspoken and spoken imperatives to leaders in the jewelry industry to be more inclusive. And one really great example is the Natural Diamond Council has been very thoughtful and intentional in championing the work of emerging designers from an array of backgrounds through some capsule collections, and De Beers as well has also. Were you part of that group? Yes. So why don't you speak to that, because that's another, because they invited a group of designers, and that I think just by leading their example, I think is really, hopefully other brands will follow suit. But I'm going to let you speak to that.
Okay, got it. So I did a program with De Beers and Couture called The Ratings, and it was a mentorship program. That's how it started, and then De Beers came along and they wanted to do something with us, so we did a diamond project. The fine jewelry world is very different. The materials are very expensive, but what I've learned is you don't need a million things to show your point of view. You can have 5 pieces, and that should be your point of view to start with. You don't need to do this big thing, and a lot of people think that they need like a million pieces to start as a designer, and you don't. You can have 3 things and then build from there over the course of a year, 2-3 years. I'm still building collections that I did like 5 years ago. So understand that it takes time. If you don't come from like money, it's gonna take you longer. You're gonna have to find capital, and eventually you'll learn how to do that. But you don't need a lot to start, like Andrea said, you just need a few things. You just have to show your point of view, like what's your point of view and what you wanna tell the world through your work. And so the Diamond Project was a way for me I wanted to do fine jewelry. I was already doing silver, which is like her sister to it, to start with. And so when I was able to translate that into gold and that opportunity came, I was ready. I had the experience from other jobs, so that was good. And so that was a way for me to do it. And yeah, and the diamonds are like So sprinkled to that, so that was great.
And it's that point of view that I think is really exciting in the design movement now, because for a very long time, the fine jewelry point of view was Eurocentric. At least the jewelry that we buy in America, now you buy jewelry in the Middle East and it's going to be East Asian centric, it's going to be 24 karat and 18 karat gold. But in America and in Europe, and to a great extent in most of Asia, the design philosophy was Eurocentric. And that is an interesting point of view, but it is by no means the only point of view. So what happens when other points of view get into design? And how do consumers respond to that? Because jewelry gets exciting again.
Muso Emerald did a collaboration with designers, and that launched during New York City Jewelry Week, and that was the first time I had heard about this designer, Atombi Metals, and she's indigenous. And she specializes in these very beautiful beaded, sort of woven, textile-inspired designs. And if you read her background, she's actually, I think, from New Mexico. But if you read her background, she has been, an established jeweler, working in her craft for decades. I mean, really. But I'm like, how come I never heard of her? Like, how has this person never been on my radar? And I've been covering jewelry for 20 years. And, I tip my hat to Muso Emerald and Jennifer Gandia at Greenwich Street Jewelers for providing a retail platform for that collective. That was the Here We Are collective through New York City Jewelry Week, which is also a big part of the diversity, equity, inclusion movement in the jewelry industry. But the results, I think, of these efforts, Andrea, are that we are exposed to voices that we may not have heard of before, that we never would have heard of before in the fine jewelry space. But meanwhile, she has this very highly trained, successful in her own little nook of the world. And now the world knows about her work because I'm covering it, and other publications are covering it. So I think it's just exposure and awareness of other cultural points of view that inform the landscape of fine jewelry design beyond, the Bulgaris and the Cartiers, and beyond, the pretty diamond and golds, layering necklaces. So.
I think it's really on people in the industry to reach out and diversify, because it benefits them as well. It's, fine jewelry can have a very staid image. The celebrity red carpet has definitely helped with that. But for a lot of people, it's still very conservative. And how are you going to get customers? How are you going to get people excited if you're selling the same thing all the time? I really admire the retailers like Greenwich Street and Robert Goodman in Indiana, who really go out of their way to find someone like a new voice. And it's not like a case of you're doing this just for the design. You're doing it for you too. Like don't you want to show your customers something fresh?
Well, and those are two examples of retailers that are intentionally making space.
Yes.
Those voices haven't been present. They've been, boxed out for a very long time, either from the making end or access to market end. And so it's not just about, can I sell this jewelry and make some money? They're actually saying, in these cases, I'm making space. And the consumers love it. Robert Goodman's profile as a store is growing constantly because people are aware of the fact that he's making this space for these alternate voices. But the other thing that happens is the design gets better, because design's a language. And if you're only speaking, English, then that's not as interesting as when you're speaking all the languages. So the maximalism movement, that's a good example of that. What are some other design conventions you're seeing show up that aren't necessarily things that came out of the traditional fine jewelry?
Well, definitely what I'll call naughty jewelry. Back in 2008, I had a big set of silver rings I called swear rings. It was an F and 3 punctuation marks. And I went to one big retailer, and they were so excited because it was funny, but then they really talked themselves out of it. They got very nervous. Since then, I mean, I think of about like 4 years later, it just bloomed, because I think partly that's, you know, interacting with the customer, finding someone who has like a little mischief in them. And you know, it's like a new kind of jewelry. You can be kind of punk, you can be kind of wild. And now, you know, my swear rings were like censored. No one censors anymore. Like, the words are all out there.
They're all out there.
And there's some great, you know, fancy cut diamonds. There's like a whole new level to that. I think it's Misfit Diamonds has the little phallic diamonds.
Such an elegant way to put it.
I was thinking,
I didn't know what to say. Phallic is the key word there.
I was thinking that's gotten, it's like funny to see, and it's just, and that's gotten very popular. So
Yes.
it's like a sense of fun that wasn't there before.
A sense of humor, yeah.
A sense of humor in fine jewelry is not necessarily the way we talk about fine jewelry usually.
There's a designer in the UK, I think, or she might, anyway, Kerchung Creative. And she's a great example of naughty for sure, but also unconventional materials. Everything's porcelain. I think it's porcelain, it's ceramic, but it's and just little tiny charms and with sayings and hand painted and and she has a huge following, and she does drops, and like you have to get up in the middle of the night to like, she might be in Japan, I don't know, anyways, you have to get up in the middle of the night to do her drops and in order to get a piece.
Explain to some of our audience, what's a drop?
Okay, so a drop is when you do a limited run of a product, a limited edition of a product, and there's a finite amount of pieces in that drop, and you roll it out, you know, kind of as cookies come out of the oven. You roll them out, and you kind of build up anticipation for them on social media, and then, you know, it's like a countdown clock kind of thing, and then it's like, boom, they go up on your Etsy shop or wherever, whatever, you know, e-com platform of choice, and then like the stuff usually sells out. So. A great way for small makers to kind of generate some buzz and excitement for their product.
There's a designer out of Atlanta called Cerise D. And they started, it's a black-owned business, started designing primarily for HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, and historically black sororities, doing their sorority colors. But then they expanded to this couture line. And it's this giant, chunky, funky beads mixed with precious metals, a certain amount of wire wrapping. It's gorgeous stuff. I've seen Hillary Clinton wearing it. I mean, like, you see different, you know, lots of different people wearing it, but it comes from that perspective of oversized, African-American influenced design that's now showing up as fine jewelry, not just as, you know, what the fine jewelry industry would have referred to as, you know, fashion or accessory. But people are spending hundreds of dollars on these pieces. These are not play pieces.
Yeah, and I also think, like, adding to that, like, I know some people that they're doing one way of working, and then when they go into fine jewelry, they do something completely different that has nothing to do with what they're doing because they think that's gonna sell. Like, never do that. Always design from the heart, and always stay true to yourself, because that's what's going to translate. You don't need to, like, fine jewelry, you don't, like, I didn't have to change myself to do fine jewelry, you just have to translate that into it. So it's the same thing, it's just a different material. That's more expensive, that's it.
That's really good
Right,
advice.
Right, yeah.
Let's talk about alternate materials, because silver is technically a precious metal, and yet look how we dance around the top. It's kind of fine, but it's not. Silver's a precious metal. It's not gold, it's silver. In the fine jewelry world, it's like it's all gold, and then a little bit of room for some silver. And you know what? Consumers sometimes just don't care. If you show a design in felt that they really love, they're going to buy it. So, are you seeing any interesting things with materials? You alluded to it before. Let's talk more about what we're seeing in alternate materials.
Like Boucheron, they did the whole shell with diamonds. Like, they're doing really cool things. I thought it was really, like, sick for, like, a company like that.
Definitely, yeah, like setting the gemstones into the shells.
Yeah, the shells, yeah, that was really cool.
That's very cool. Yeah, a couple of other, that's actually on my radar. I've got a couple of notes on that. And then I'm working on a story right now about aluminum as a material, and I'm learning a lot about that. I thought it was like this new I just thought it seemed like such a radical choice, but I have learned that it's something art jewelers have experimented with for years. Then, of course, at the luxury sector, we have JAR working with it, and Hammerley, and so I've been doing kind of a deep dive into aluminum, and there's a lot of opportunities there, I think. It's really, really inexpensive.
Yeah, like Hermele, that's what you said? Hammerley. Like, they do bronze with like a giant garnet, and it looks amazing. And they put gold into it, and it looks so high end. It's very expensive, but it's like they work with bronze, copper, and they put these giant, super expensive stones, and it looks amazing. So it's really just like how you combine the pieces. Yeah.
And then the other thing with aluminum that I guess excites me is that you can manipulate it to take on these extraordinary colors. And you see some rhodium plating, anodizing. You can anodize a variety of metals, right? I'll look to the experts on that one. Titanium, you can do it. So you can achieve all these beautiful colors, but from what I'm hearing, aluminum really is exceptional in that regard. You can get very nuanced shades. You can get a wide array, not just your neon blue, not just your red, which are, So I think because it's so inexpensive, I really do think there's a great, that maybe that will lead to something, because if you can figure out how to work with it, which I understand it's very difficult to work with, but if you can figure out a way to do that, that's a great, your margins could really take off, be off to the races.
I do think sometimes you need a lot of capital to explore those options. It can be expensive to work with inexpensive material. So there are so many things I would love to pursue that, I just can't. The strange metal that I like to work with is platinum for very casual jewelry. Most people think of it as, red carpet and engagement bands, but I do, little barbed wires and naughty words and the misfit diamonds go into that, and so that's sort of what's accessible to me. But I love Hemmerly, and I also think when I think of ceramics and important gems, I also think of taffin for those really subtle hues. Before that, I think I saw ceramic as being the bold jewel colors, red, brights, but very subtle and interesting coloring, then combined with really important stones.
When you're working with platinum, are you hand working it, or?
Yeah.
It's buttery. You could braid platinum. It does cool things.
It's always interesting when you have to find someone who wants to work with a particular metal too. There's a lot that the people who've been in the industry for a long time don't love to work with.
Definitely.
It's got a personality. What kinds of things, do you have any insights on stores that are more likely to pick up these alternate products? Where have you seen, where are you getting your naughty words distributed? Who's comfortable with introducing these non-traditional voices into fine jewelry stores?
I think it really starts with the direct-to-consumer model first, and if you can grow that and get some kind of, establish that there's a market for this, I think then there's a lot of indie jewelers who are much more interested, indie jewelry stores who are much more interested in giving it a try. There's still, it's still a very conservative industry. So you're really looking for someone, at a store where their personality clicks with yours, and they're like, yeah, this is funny to me. I know who I can sell it to. That's also important.
To me, that's so sad, though, because consumers do want to see different things. And in retail stores, the ultimate route to be branded and memorable is to not carry the same merchandise everyone else is carrying. I mean, this is going to date me way back, but in the 70s, I did my first management training was at Sears as a merchant. And the one thing we were focused on is not even every store has to have the same merchandise in every department. You know, that merchandising is all about knowing, taking risks. We were told if you don't make any mistakes, if you don't have any inventory problems, you are going to get fired because you're not trying enough things. Now, we were also expected to know how to liquidate the inventory that didn't sell, but it was a requirement that we experiment. And I think fine jewelers would so benefit from being more experimental with their offering.
I actually have a question for Angely in response, but like when you were at Couture and showing your collection and showing your pieces, you know, what was the retailer response? And did they say like, I'd love to try you, but I don't know, or let's try one piece? Like, I'd love to know the feedback from retailers.
So I had I wasn't there to like connect to every single retailer because not every single retailer is a fit. But I connected with like a couple, like a few. And the stores, I really like the stores because they carry work that is like handmade, artisan made, like art and soul.
Yes.
Like I talked to Debbie, like Debbie carries artist made jewelry.
Yep.
Like I think Todd Reed started there. He started there and like he's huge now. So, and he takes what, 30 years maybe? He's been doing it, right, Todd Reed? Like,
Yeah, Todd's been about
yeah. So, you know, she has a point of view. She understands that. She understands that people want something different in her market. So she will bring in new artists, and I talked to her. And then it was Goldbug in Pasadena. And he's like, oh, I may have a client for that. Like, she loves worms, and like, she's a scientist. She likes that stuff. So it depends, like, what they specialize on. The stores, they'll be open to it. Like, if they're experimental, they'll be open to do that. And a lot of the those kinds of stores, like cool retailers, they go there. So it's a really good way to meet really great people. And everybody has different ideas. Like, oh, we can make that ring like bigger, like with more diamonds. Or so it all depends. It's just continuing the talk, and then eventually you'll get into the store. It's not like we're gonna go in right away and spend $50,000 and we don't know you yet. So it's like it's a continuous conversation. Yeah.
Well, also, I think just as any of us who want to, you know, be more enlightened and inclusive in our lives and in our work, you know, I would say that retailers need to actively seek out this kind of talent. It doesn't just land in your inbox. It doesn't just show up. We all have to be, and as an editor, I have to be proactive in making sure that my articles are balanced and that, you know, multiple voices are represented, and it does require like an extra step. But I think, and so I would like to see more retailers, you know, put in a little bit of extra time to seek out this talent. And go to the Couture show. Like, I really feel like Couture could have promoted the fact that you guys were there a little bit more. I didn't even know you were there until I walked by, and so I think you know, I mean, I'm sure they reached out to the stores and stuff like that to let them know they were there, but I think just it will require a little, if you're interested in making your assortment more diverse, I think it will require a little bit of research and some, you know, Instagram scrolling and whatever, but it's worth it. It's worth it, and it's not just, I guess I would encourage stores to not think of it as like, and then this is my diverse assortment. It's like, figure out how to like work it all into your mix. You're gonna find things that will work for your mix.
Because it's good for your business. I mean, the Natural Diamond Council and De Beers aren't doing this out of pure altruism. They recognize that they need, that the consumers want these diverse voices in design, that they're already gravitating toward it, that they're not, you know, paying homage to fine jewelry the way past generations did, that they see that as part of the jewelry wardrobe. But, you know, but a woman in her, you know, late 20s, early 30s today is just as likely to clip on some, you know, electroplated earrings and a pendant and go out for a very expensive dinner and not feel like she needs to apologize for that at all. So it's better for business to let all the voices in.
It's important to remember that everyone starts somewhere, that many decades ago, David Yurman was controversial for having silver and diamonds, and that was outrageous, and people weren't comfortable with it, and now look.
And he told everybody, I couldn't afford the gold, that's all I could afford to work with. Yep. Yeah, and he's mainstream now, and people who bet on David early did very well.
Yeah, so But yeah, like I said, like being open, but we also like as designers we have to be proactive. So like you make the connection and then you have to just keep going. And some people just might be passing, and some people it's like just keep talking to them, just keep put yourself out. Also like reach out. It's okay to reach out. You don't have to wait for people to reach out to you. So if you feel like you're fit, reach out.
And also, like Bob Goodman, one of the things that he did is he hosted like a special marketplace in his store where he literally closed down the retail aspect of his store and made it a space for local makers that were, BIPOC, et cetera, and gave them each a space, used his countertops as a display for their work. And some of them were jewelry designers, some of them were craft, engaged in other visual arts or whatever. But and I actually recently just interviewed a store in Denver that is doing a special marketplace for emerging designers, beyond the walls of their store. Like for the Cherry Creek Art Festival, they're going to have like a special little marketplace where I'm sure that will be a test and learn situation for them, right? If something does really well, they'll be watching.
Well, and Bob will tell you, they met new customers in that process, people who will now come back to the store for lots of reasons.
You're not going to find the next David Yurman if you don't try new people out.
Yep. So what other fashion things are you seeing in, just across the board? What are we seeing in jewelry that's exciting and new?
Okay, well, I'm kind of excited. This is also maybe a little controversial, but I don't know if people saw that the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton, was wearing Zara earrings to the BAFTAs. And I have been saying, and speaking with experts, and I have been saying for a while that I think the mix of high and low, this is our moment. I think finding ways to mix your costume or your plated with your fine is, I think that's, I don't think you're one or the other anymore. I think the customer is totally fine mixing and matching, and fast fashion is what it is, disposable fashion is what it is, but I think there's really good design, I'm sorry, there's good design coming out of Zara, there's good design coming out of Mango, H&M is still really good, so there's a lot of fancy ladies that are wearing Mango, you know what I mean, and so I think, I don't know what the takeaway is for a high-end designer like yourselves, but like a fine jeweler, but there's something to that. I think there's the mastering the art of the high-low mix, I think, is going to become really important.
So you will see people wearing H&M with a $10,000 necklace or whatever. It just people just do what they want to do. Some people it's all about jewelry, and that's all they focus on. Some people focus on the clothes and how the jewelry goes with the clothes, or all together they do everything. So there's so many ways to do this.
And fashion is navigating it beautifully.
Yes, it is.
I think part of the high-low thing goes with what you said about maximalism. Is I like this and I like this, and and you can make a bigger statement if you layer in the costume jewelry.
Plus, it'd be really heavy if it was all gold.
Though I kind of like the heavy gold.
I also like Rihanna's look at the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
Diamond, Mexica earrings, but then she had a jumpsuit, so it was.
And she had brooches.
And the 3 brooches, yeah. And then it's
brooches are coming back.
I know, and then she had the watch, and she had the vintage, antique ruby ring. I mean, she had a lot of jewelry on.
Yes, she did.
A lot, and it was a lot. And it was beautiful, yeah.
A lot of jewelry with that jumpsuit and sneakers.
Exactly. So.
Well, and I do think that estate's having a moment as well.
And vintage clothing, a lot of vintage designers, Zendaya wears a lot of vintage archives. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my taste level doesn't necessarily dictate, the zeitgeist, but I'm really interested in vintage Scandinavian silver all of a sudden, which is so now I'm definitely a gold girl at the end of the day, but I'm really interested in Lisa Kramer Vintage is this vintage dealer that I really like to, and she finds these very inexpensive or comparatively inexpensive beautiful design, silver designs from like the 60s and 70s. Some of them from the Georg Jensen workshop, some just randoms from Denmark and what have you, Finland, I don't know. So it's this like Scandi chic silver jewelry. I'm feeling really into that.
I've always found people, and ever more so, very interested in redesigning and repurposing old jewelry. That's kind of one of my specialties. And for people who are conscious about how we, natural resources, and the fact that also you have this thing from grandma that's kind of haunting you, like you don't wear it, but there it is, and and the thing I like about fine jewelry is it doesn't, well, deliberately anyway, it doesn't go to a landfill ever. It's always reused. So I just find people are really open to doing creative and edgy designs with old jewelry and feeling just very satisfied that they were able to like recycle, reuse, rewear that.
Yeah. Yesterday, Jay Mikado was here talking about it on a gemstone panel. He owns Perpetuum Jewels. They do a certain amount of estate business, and I think it was he that said, there's a lot of amazing jewelry out there that needs to get saved from being recycled. Beautiful design that just needs a new home.
Yeah, every once in a while, someone wants to take something apart and like, this can't be taken apart. Yeah, we're going to find a way for you to wear it or for someone else to wear it, but you can't take this apart.
One of my favorite Instagrams is Tales from the Junk Pile, and it's
I love
this.
that.
Oh my God, I'm just obsessed. And she goes to the gold refiners. The proprietor of this account goes to the gold refiners. Her name's Elsa, I think, or Elisa, and she digs through the junk piles and finds amazing things. Outrageous. The biggest gold necklaces you've ever seen, but also like a really cool dome band. And I don't think her markup is crazy. I mean, she buys it by the weight. And I'm like truly enamored of her. The stuff sells out so fast. So that's such a great example of like sustainability and fashion and just like the joy of fine jewelry colliding in this one amazing thing. So I would love to go to a refiner and just like, you'd have to pry me out of there. I'd be like, I'm not leaving ever.
I'm sure any number of them would let you visit just to see what you found. But I think that's good advice for jewelry retailers too, fine jewelry retailers, to make the space. It's like right now you see a lot. The diamonds are in one place. There's gold. There's color in another section. There's the estate case in the back, and maybe there's a silver line. And I don't think that's the way consumers are shopping. I think consumers want to see merchandising that like the way fashion does. It shows you, if you put this sweater with this pair of jeans, you might not have thought of it, but it's pretty amazing. To show suites of different perspectives of jewelry, including different materials, and get people excited about buying all of it.
Yeah. There's also like new stores coming in, like Tiny Gods. It's like 2 years old, 3 years old, right? Tiny Gods. Yeah. And like she's basically new in the space, and she has a bunch of contemporary fine jewelers. So it's also like who is coming into the space is like new. So that also helps too, like the new retailers coming in. Yeah.
So if you guys had like the perfect opportunity to merchandise a fine retail store, what would you put in it?
Oh, for like me personally. Oh my God. I mean, as much as we talk about, different materials and everything, I love the big art pieces, though I don't work with, big gems. I work with like a lot of pave. I'm actually more focused on metals than anything, and I'm very into pieces that tell a story. So I would just have, it would be like walking into, if anyone went to the Metropolitan Museum for the Tudor exhibit, it would be the Tudor exhibit with my jewelry in it.
Or like the Mad About Jewelry exhibit. That's always a fun one. There's some pretty cool jewelry. If you guys haven't ever gone to Museum of Art and Design's Mad About Jewelry experience, it's great design.
Yeah. They have a great lineup this year, so make sure to go if you can. I would say like objects, like big objects, like maybe carve out of stone, just like cool stuff. I don't know.
Just got a Tucson and load up the truck.
Yeah, like a bug, like
Amy
a
said,
giant
just go
bug.
to Tucson and load up the truck. This is a hard to treat illness in our industry, as going to Tucson and loading up the truck.
My store would be in Aladdin's cave, and you wouldn't be able to find anything because it would be like packed to the gills with everything that I love from all different aspects of everything. It would be like the TJ Maxx pile, the estate pile, the Bulgari pile. It would just be like filled with stuff. So.
I mean, I honestly would like to, I mean, that's the kind of thing I can never tear myself away from. Yeah, and I think you do get the customers who just like love to, you know, really look through. There's like a challenge, you know, like thrift shop, it's kind of like thrift shopping. There's like the challenge of finding something, finding something special. But honestly, I really do like the museum exhibit idea. And like, why not have some paintings? Why not have, you know, a few interesting objects, like a couple pieces of clothing, just to like make it look like a place where like it reflects the customer's life a little more, like a little homey, a little bit like, you know, a well-rounded person.
Those kinds of stores would tell stories. I mean, what weaving through everything we discuss these days is what is the retail experience? What does it need to be? And I don't think people keep saying, you know, has anyone figured out what the retail experience is? Nobody's going to figure out what the retail experience is, because the retail experience, when it's done well, is going to be very different from location to location, specific to their clientele and who they want to attract.
I recently interviewed another store in Mississippi, and they're in the process of rebranding. And she talked about a new space. It's already opened, but it kind of soft launched. But she talked about a new space. I'm being vague because it's going to be out on JCK. But they opened they expanded, and they opened a new space. And they were very deliberate about the design and the kind of mood that they wanted to create. And her quote was, "It's a vibe when you're in there." And she's like a 35-year-old jeweler, like she's young, she's definitely trying to attract a younger clientele, so perhaps the takeaway is to create a vibe, which I think you're on to with that, and maybe even with your large objects, but creating a vibe with your colors and your assortment and your setup.
And I think that, well, maybe I'm asking a question now. What do people think about Neiman Marcus saying they were going to focus on their highest net worth client? I mean, that seems sort of the opposite of a vibe to me.
Fair enough. They're going after high margin customers. My guess would be because labor is so difficult right now. So if you have a hard time hiring enough people to staff your jewelry counters in your store, go after your highest net worth clientele. But ultimately, I think it's a zero-sum game. But they don't ask me for my opinion.
They don't ask me for money either.
I somehow missed that headline, so I'm going to have to Google that and read that a little, read up on that.
And there is an opportunity for retailers to say, you know, I've got a group of, you know, in my sales team, there are a couple of people going after the highest net worth clients. We call them whales, whale hunting. And then you've got your store serving everybody else that walks in. But the funny thing is, the highest net worth clients are also buying diverse design. So you're still not going to keep them happy. I mean, you know, are you going to be able to move a great big juicy 3-carat diamond that's perfectly cut? Sure. But do you want that person only coming back when they need that, you know, elaborate piece? It's good to get them coming back, but you can get them coming back more often.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the princess wearing Zara. You can't get fancier than that, right? Princess.
I mean, I do think like the high net worth, I don't know. I mean, what I do some writing for First Dibs, which is a really unique platform. Like, yes, there are a lot of very high-end estate dealers on there, but they also have contemporary. They're on there, and they have contemporary designers. They have also partnered with the Here We Are collective on capsules, and so I feel like they're a retailer that's been doing an online retailer that's been doing a good job of sort of walking the walk and being intentional about having a more diverse assortment. But yeah, they what I hear when I interview some of these singular private jewelers and they want the high net worth client wants something that no one else has. They want something that makes you wonder, something that is perhaps not even overtly luxurious, something that is, that perhaps was made just for them, a bespoke piece.
Custom, yeah, like private clients.
Yep.
That's like the high net worth. So they might be focusing on custom maybe, like through designers. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that person's shopping at Neiman Marcus.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
They're not set up to handle that custom transaction. It's
Yeah,
its
like-
own transaction.
Yeah, it's a very different. That's a very different world. But like some high net worth people, they collect silver. Like that's all they wear, silver. So.
Or they go to the design fairs.
Exactly.
They're going to TFAF. They're going to, and that's where they're finding their, singular pieces that nobody else has, or that designer that is so underexposed that they won't even let you take pictures of their stuff.
I don't necessarily think that the Neiman Marcus plan is a bad one business-wise, but the announcement didn't go over that well. I thought this is probably smart of them to do this focus, but maybe they should have.
Right.
And considering how small the population of the V high net worth clients are, it could have been done with one-to-one emails and you'd cover it.
I don't know, maybe it's like reverse psychology and it makes it more aspirational. People want to come in. I don't know.
I feel like part of the reason that everything is, technology is opening doors, dropping those barriers to entry as we discussed earlier. But it's also our next generations, our young millennials and Gen Zs and whatever we're calling the next generation. I don't even know what the acronym is for them yet, but they're more open, they're more diverse. They do not like the idea of exclusion, and exclusivity plays too much into that. And that's who we need to be selling to in the next 10 to 15 years. And it's a long time before these generations become very high net worth for the most part, because it's really hard for them.
Well, also, like your client grows with you. So as you become established, they might become established in their own field, and then they buy more things or they buy more crazy things. Yeah. So people change and their tastes change. So yeah.
I've definitely had customers graduate from buying a single silver stud earring to an engagement ring.
And they appreciate when they can grow with you like that. That's the other thing I think at fine jewelry we need to pay attention to, is making sure that those lower price points are available to bring younger people who don't have the income in the store yet, in the store, so that they can grow with you. Because if they don't decide a traditional engagement ring is something they want, they might not ever enter the store.
Yeah. Which is, the zapping, the permanent bracelets thing. I think that's the mindset informing that choice to offer that in your store is absolutely about getting a younger customer just in the door and in your store and forming those relationships. Like, who cares if the thing falls off? Like, she's gonna she'll come back, and and so just to create the illusion that your store is like hot and happening and there's stuff going on, and so that whole trend is really, really interesting to me, and it's definitely here to stay for a while.
Yeah, the permanent jewelry's been fun. Go ahead.
I'm just happy to see fun things in fine jewelry is a breath of fresh air.
I remember when I first entered the jewelry industry, I entered it at a supplier manufacturer, and a question I asked in a meeting was, well, why aren't we carrying body jewelry? And the room just went silent. And I was actually told, don't bring that up again. And I was running the company, but we couldn't talk about body jewelry.
It's hot. I'm looking. You have a couple piercings, right? I mean, like the ears are the least of it now. Someone has to make jewelry for the rest of the body. Yeah.
Well, and people buy a lot of body jewelry, and they're willing to buy expensive body jewelry.
You'll be surprised, like the things people buy like a day like that. And I'm like, wow, okay, I need that client.
So, what's all of your favorite piece of jewelry right now, whether you own it or just covet it?
Hugo Crate. I think he's based in France. He's like young, like he's like more in fashion, but he's a jewelry designer. He's making these crazy flowers. They look like aluminum, like anodized. So I'm excited about that. That's really good. Yeah.
In my travels on Instagram and following all the estate jewelers that I follow, I've been turned on to engine turned. The engine turned look, where it's almost like a sunburst of metal work on the metal. I love that. So that just looks so fresh and pretty and graphic to me. So something with that is on my wish list.
I wish I could restyle all my ear jewelry like every day. There's some of it that really you need someone else to help get out, and you wear it for a long time. But a friend of mine owns So Gold Studios in Brooklyn, and she's like a great. Her name is Cassie Lopez, and she has a great eye for putting together kind of collections on each ear. I think I have 16 piercings now, and she does like such a beautiful job and everything. All the pictures are so inspiring. I'm like, it's like if I go once a year and like jazz it up, that would be a lot. If I could, I would switch it up every week for sure.
You point to a really cool, like something I think people need to think about a lot. So you're talking about styling all your ear jewelry. We've talked about the neck mess. Bracelet stacks are still very important, or the wrist mess.
An arm party it was.
An arm party, that's right. But a lot of times people don't know what to put together. Like if you talk to David Allen, he'll tell you that one of the reasons that people keep coming back is because he shows them how to put these insanely beautiful ring stacks together. So, like providing that service for your client of helping them merchandise their mess however they want to wear it, so they can feel confident they put the right jewelry together. And it's a mix of fine and, not traditionally fine. It's like you're putting a whole bunch of jewelry together, and people don't know how.
And that's something that a retailer or a designer can really create a personal connection while you're doing that, and a sense of trust because they feel great about it. I mean, I wouldn't go to anyone except Cassie for my ears. I mean, I just wouldn't. So, once there's that connection, you're going to keep going back.
Yep. Any parting thoughts on our evolving fashion environment and how the jewelry industry should be looking at it?
Sorry, I talk so much, and I have so many thoughts, but I guess just going back to your thoughts about just mentioning Gen Z, that is our next demographic that, those of us invested in the growth of the jewelry industry need to focus on. And just the research I've done shows me that they're watching you. They are watching you. They are watching on your Instagram. To see who you are as a brand, who you are as a person, show them who you are. And they are, I think our Gen Z is progressive and activist in nature, and that is something to also keep in mind. And I think they appreciate progressive points of view, and I would like to see more designers and retailers leaning into that a bit more.
That kind of goes with one of my thoughts, is that just the industry in general, I mean, there should be a welcoming attitude for new customers, new designers, however you want to wear it. There's no wrong way to wear things. Why not, be more fun? It is expensive items usually in fine jewelry. It's something you're going to keep for a long time, but there can still be. It doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be solemn or kind of oppressive. Just have everyone come in. Welcome everyone into this world of jewelry and the art of jewelry. According to the Metropolitan Museum, it's the oldest form of art, older than cave paintings.
Sorry.
It's my prompt.
Parting talk. Yeah, I think trends help sell your point of view, but just make what you want to make, like whatever you want to do. Like you want to do crazy silver pieces, make crazy silver pieces. You want to make gold, I want to make everything now. Like I want to do high jewelry too. I want to do everything. So, but you know, I have to pace myself. But whatever helps translate your point of view. Like I started in like alternative, like plastic and resin, and it's the same point of view in metal. So it doesn't matter really. Just do whatever you want. Try everything. Thank you.
I think that last thought would be, you know, whether or not you're comfortable with the idea of Gen Z has really no relevance at all. They're here, they have a perspective, there's going to be another generation after them. My generation was irritating to the generation before me, okay? Millennials were such a problem until they weren't. You know what, somebody once told me, I'm not comfortable with teenagers. I'm like, don't have kids. Because they become teenagers whether you want them to or not. These generations are coming, they have different tastes and different interests and different expectations of the people who sell to them. And if you're going to be in business, you need to learn to love them.
And I think there is an imperative to hire them. As the jewelry industry, whether you're a supplier or a retailer or a designer, I do think the success of your business depends on diversifying the generations. You know, the demographic of the average person that works for you, and they're a tough nut to crack. And you know, there's an article on JCK I wrote all about it. Making sure that they will just add so much value to your business. Just having a Gen Zer on staff with you is, I think, should be a new objective for every type of jewelry company out there. I will go on the record saying that.
Well, and you see that in the big design houses, like in Europe, the design teams look so different than they did 15 years ago. They're more diverse culturally, they're much younger, they're managing their design departments differently. So, you know, at that LVMH level world of design, they are embracing what luxury really means to the next generation by investing in it in their staff. And that's why they're going to stay fresh.
And they have the resources too.
And they have the resources, right.
Get me some of those LVMH resources.
Yeah, please.
But anyone can hire somebody younger, you know, just to make sure that perspective is there. And that means investing in their training, yes. And it means, you know, helping them develop as a professional, but that's also the lifeblood of an industry.
I think that's really key advice, that you put it bluntly, firmly, but it's true. That's a good takeaway.
All right. Well, we've covered alternate materials and alternate voices and mixing our fine with our fashion. And did we miss anything in discussing about jewelry design?
I guess the only thing I haven't said is I really want to work with rubber and gold together. So if anyone wants to holler at me about that, like, let's do it.
Rubber's a cool substance to work with.
It's flexible.
It's my 1980s Madonna Metropolitan bracelets.
Preferably in that palette.
Right? Yeah. That's my goal. Hit me up for that.
All right, so rubber manufacturers. Wendy wants you. All right, well, I guess we'll wrap it then. I want to thank our live audience for joining us for this discussion. I want to thank our digital audience for joining us for this discussion. And I really want to thank Wendy Brandes and Amy Elliott and Angely Martinez for joining me and making this happen. They were my go-tos when I thought about having a different discussion about design.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here.